Welcome back to another episode of the Oil Raceway Racers Tribune. I'm Sean Chambers with Oil Raceway and the NHRA. So this week we've got a fun episode, right? Because to this point we've really focused on the drag strip, right? Most of our events are held over on the drag strip. It's we hold the biggest drag race in the world here at Oil Raceway, but the oval track here at Oil Raceway is filled with just as much tradition as the drag strip, and so we thought it was appropriate to get some oval racers here on the Racers Tribune, and the privilege of being the first oval racer on the Racers Tribune, Joe Liguori. Right, so Joe, again, a lot of tradition over here. There's a lot of people who are short track lovers, right, when it comes to racing, and Oil Raceway has a big tradition of short track racing, right? So. You're on the sprint side. Tell us a little bit about your racing background for the drag strip fans over here who may not know about you.
I started out racing go-karts when I was 6 years old, and by the time I was 14, I transitioned into running midgets up here at Indianapolis. I originally grew up in Tampa, Florida, and my grandfather was racing for years and years and stuff, and he had the midget already, and by the time I was 14, he talked at the time, it would have been Joe Mershon running the Neymar's Midget Series, and talked him into letting 14-year-old kid run. So conveniently, me and Billy Weiss were right about the same age, yeah. So Billy was able to do it at the same time. Him and I started racing midgets at the same age, and started running the midgets, ran some open wheel modifieds and stuff down in Florida, ran a lot of pavement, and when I moved up here after I graduated high school, I tried everything I could to get in a dirt sprint car, and ran a dirt sprint car for a little while and realized I was better at pavement. So last few years we transitioned back over to running pavement.
Sure. So how excited were you to see some pavement sprints and midgets back at Oil Raceway, right, if you prefer pavement?
This place is fun, and it was always funny when we ran the midget stuff. I struggled making the night before the 500, but I could make the fall race no problem.
Yeah.
So it was like the team we ran to, we were a little underfunded.
Sure.
And, you get to the biggest midget race in the Midwest at the time, it was a tough field to make. And, come the fall race, it was still had your top guys, but we'd make the race, we'd run respectful. And the fact of it's close to home, and pavement sprint cars are really fun. I always loved them as a kid, watching them and running them. So it's pretty cool to come here and run. The non-wing, I'd like for there to be a few wing races next year, hopefully, and come here and have some fun. That'll be a little different. I've run a stock car around this track, midget, sprint car, and Silver Crown. It'd be interesting what a wing car could do, because you're usually a lot more on the throttle with those. Sure.
So what about brag a little bit, right? Some of your wins, right? Some accolades. What's your resume look like?
I've won some regional midget stuff, nothing real huge. I've won several local dirt sprint car stuff. Some of my bigger wins came in the Ford Focus midget division.
Okay.
We won in 2009 and 2010. We won the Midwest Championship, and we were the highest point man in the country. At the time, they never really classified that as the national champion, sure. But in a roundabout way, we were the national champion in 2009 and 2010 with those. And then we kind of just, we'll go dirt sprint car racing. And some of my better finishes in USAC were all in the Silver Crown division.
Okay.
We've run top 5 a couple of times on pavement. My best dirt finish was at Williams Grove with a 6th. But usually we're always right there in the top 10 with the Silver Crown stuff. And it's been basically our own car, or now I'm driving for a guy named Roger Williams on the pavement. So it's kind of, lower tier teams, but running up there with the big boys.
Sure. So you have, you talked about growing up in Florida, right? You talked about your grandfather a little bit. We see it a lot. We see it a lot on the drag strip side because we have more of those events and bracket racing and stuff like that, where it's a family thing, right? Everybody over there knows each other. They're in the pits with each other all weekend. They travel around the Midwest together, right? So we talk a lot about like the community side over there. Over on this side, we see a lot of like the family aspect, right? And you talked a little bit about your grandfather. So tell us a little bit about how your family has kind of been around the racing world.
My grandfather started racing in 1949. At the time, he went through the war stuff and this and that. He grew up in the Bronx, and he saw racing. It was stock car stuff at the time, And he saw that, and he said, I'm going to go do this. And the very first race he went out, he spent $40 on the car and made $60 and figured, hey, I can make a living doing this. So, and it turned out to be, he made a living, built a business. So it helped out. My father still runs the business at the time, or right now. And, my grandfather, he raced, and it was always traveling. So my uncles and my dad, they all ran motocross stuff. And they liked it. My dad was pretty good. He won some AMA races riding motocross. And in the 80s, he transitioned running go-kart stuff. And that was about the time my brother was born, and then I was born. And about in 92, the dad decided to set up a little course between a tree and a water spigot for me and my brother to run a go-kart around and see if we wanted to race. And he had strong stipulations of don't hit the water spigot. Didn't care if we hit the tree. Neither myself or my brother hit the tree, but my brother hit the water spigot. Dad got a little upset, and Mike was like, I don't know. And then he never really much of a car person at the time.
Mike's your brother?
Mike's my brother.
Okay.
He's my older brother. He's not really into the car stuff. He's into a lot of musical stuff. And he actually has a local band down in Florida that travels the whole state.
Okay.
So he's on that side of things, but that was what Mom liked. So we kind of both have our little things. I'm with my dad, he's with Mom's side. And so I started running go-kart stuff in 1992. And 94, we won a track championship at Dade City Raceway in the rookie class. And then we never really ran for points a lot of places. We just kind of traveled around, and there were times we'd run a Saturday morning, then Saturday night at a place, and then go Sunday morning somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Just kind of travel around and race. And that was, what my dad wanted was, we didn't care about points. It was just go race, have fun, and do it right. Sure. So, and then by the time I was getting older, Grandpa noticed that we were running pretty good and wanted to help support us. And we had some of his support, like with Bill Simpson, safety equipment. First, right away, Bill was like, yeah, we need to get him in some good stuff. So he helped us out right off the bat, and Bill helped us out for a long time with safety equipment. So that was a huge help to my career with people like him. Okay. And, by the time I was 14, I decided, we're going to run a midget. And I practiced at a racetrack called Auburndale Speedway down in Florida. And we came up here. I was supposed to run a midget for a guy named Bill Benefield at the Indianapolis Speedrome. And we went out, practiced. I hit one of the infield tires, knocked the front end out of it, put it in the fence right away. I mean, it was like 3 laps in. So I was like, well, that was an embarrassing start. That's a good way to show a 14-year-old starting in a midget. But next race, we got back in my grandfather's car. We ran respectful for a lot of years. We went a long time running second and third, and finally we picked up a couple wins. It was one of those, moments you're like, finally, weight lifted off your shoulder. Yep. Because I couldn't count how many seconds and thirds we had at the speedrome. I had a million of different people too. But that's kind of like the story of my racing career has always been a little bit of a bridesmaid. And even this year we've had some good runs. We're leading races, and it never comes to fruition at the end of the race to winning it. But we're there. We always run respectful. We're by no means a high buck team. We're always looking for a little bit of help here to help pay the tire bill. That's the biggest thing. And recently I decided I want to go pavement sprint car racing, and I like the wing stuff. They were cool, and you gotta really drive those cars. So that's fun. And then when you go take the wing off, it's like a totally different animal. So it's a different aspect, and it's a lot less time consuming than the dirt racing, because the dirt racing you're constantly cleaning the car every race, cleaning the trailer, this and that. And I have a 4-year-old daughter, or she'll be 4 in 2 weeks. Okay. Daughter, 4-year-old daughter Emily. She takes up a lot of time. My wife used to race also. I actually met her racing. And once we had the kid, she kind of said, I'm done racing with the kid. That's fine.
Did you ever race against each other?
Yeah, we've raced against each other. And conveniently, at the Rumble in Fort Wayne, we're the only husband and wife teams ever make the feature, and also the only husband and wife to wreck each other.
I'm not even going to ask about that argument when you got done.
There wasn't much of an argument. I wasn't really mad at her. It was the guy in front of her that got her out of shape. She got sideways, and when you backed off the throttle, I just ran into her. I mean, it was just like, oops. And we had the same car owner. And the first thing he did was just laugh. He laughed his ass off the whole time, like, look at that, first husband and wife to wreck each other. Love it. And that guy's named Randall Williams. Slim's what we call him. He's about yay tall. Good dude. You could destroy his race car, and he's just going to laugh and smile about it. And so I still run for him today, and Lindsay still has a seat for an indoor midget she wants to run, but she doesn't. But anyways, we decided let's go back pavement racing. It's a lot less time consuming, and it's good because a lot of places you can come here. This is 30 minutes from our house.
Sure.
They could come out a little bit later, especially on the hot days where we're down in the infield all day, so the kid's not out there. And I've been really good friends with Bobby Santos and Cody Swanson for years.
Yeah.
I've raced with them since 2005 area when they first started coming around here, and then friends with Billy Weiss also and his sister Christy, which is Bobby's wife. Okay. Friends with them, so our kids are now friends.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. And then same thing with Cody's kids, and then Jordan. My wife and Jordan talk every now and then. So it's fun. You kind of get the families together, and we go race and kind of go play, and the kids can play.
Sure. So again, let's touch on it specifically. You talked about your grandpa a little bit. Very well known in the racing world, right, Ralph? That's something where, Central Indiana. I grew up in Central Indiana, right? It's the racing world is man. You talk about basketball in Indiana and in Central Indiana specifically, it's 1A and 1B, right? It's kind of a coin flip between the two, and so you start talking about IndyCar and the Indy 500, and all of a sudden heads turn, right? And people are now paying attention. So, so your grandpa, you talked about kind of always being a bridesmaid, right? Like that kind of thing. Is he the only one that might be able to top that story of all those seconds?
Yeah, and it's one of those unfortunate topics that always comes up. But he has the most attempts to qualify at the Indianapolis 500 and never make the race. He had 1 year. He had a really good ride lined up. He got hurt in Trenton, New Jersey at a race. So he kind of missed the whole month of May for that deal. And a couple times he was the first alternate. There was one time where when the hand scoring that there were several hand scorers said he made the show, and then several said, no, this guy made the show. Yeah. I don't know particular names. My dad knows the whole story.
I'm sure.
So there was a lot of politicking going on that deal, and unfortunately he lost the politic battle.
Sure.
To be a first alternate, and other than that, he won some USAC races. He ran a lot of sprint car stuff in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
He and it still technically has a world record. He has a world record at Langhorne Speedway for the fastest 50 laps on a dirt mile with a sprint car.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it was in 1958. It averaged 104 miles per hour, and no roll cage. They had their head to catch them when they crash.
Yep.
You had to have some cojones to run them cars and no brains at all. Yeah. We're not very smart these days, we think, but you look at those going, we're safe. Those guys weren't safe. They had a rope holding them in. And no, he had a good career other than that. He drove race cars for George Steinbrenner, and that's what got him down into Tampa, was racing down there. And George Steinbrenner, actually, it was kind of his thought to help my grandfather build the mobile home park that my parents now still run today.
Okay.
The trailer park, they started it back in 1958.
Wow. And
it's still in business.
Wow.
It's still a good striving business. It's nothing big. It's 54 units, and it's mostly people who work at the Tampa Bay Downs horse track.
Okay.
Or some elderly people that's been in there. And it's it started off as basically that, where Grandpa was parking cars at the horse track for Steinbrenner and driving his race car, and Grandpa saw some property, and George was like, you need to buy that property, and talked him into it, and he bought the property, and then they started the business there. With the trailer park was from Steinbrenner saying, hey, I got a buddy who he'll rent some of your yard from you. It's like $10 a week or something back then, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and then that guy had a buddy, and this guy had a buddy, and then Grandpa decided, I'm going to clear all this property off and just start renting. So it worked out, and he was able to build that business, and he still raced all the way up until 2000. His last race was at Columbus Motor Speedway in 2000. He would have been 74, I believe.
Wow.
When he was 68, I think is what it was, he won a regional midget race at the Speedrome, and he's still technically the oldest person to win a USAC feature.
Wow.
So that's one of those things where it's one of them understood or underlined records that he does have that not many people know.
Yeah.
But, the guy was still running decent and won race in his 60s. So he raced had a really long career.
That's wild. So the reason I bring that up is kind of to transition into the next topic, which, it's 2020 has been an incredibly strange year, right? No one is going to act like we're living in a normal world right now. But I bring up your grandfather because for 2020 or for the year 2020 has been bad to a lot of people. It's been that much worse to you, right? You've had a rough year, and I don't want you to talk about anything you don't want to talk about, but tell us what you can about your 2020.
Well,
it's not. I'm not laughing. It's just one of those things.
No, you're fine.
It's crazy
I laugh at myself, so it's no big deal. You're not gonna hurt my feelings.
Sure.
His shoulders are broad. So I joke at it. It started in 2019 at the Rumble, where we had a good year, and I have the most Rumble A-main starts without a win. I've had 22 A-main starts there and haven't won one. That's not a record I'm proud of, but it's one of those ones saying, hey, I got a record at something. But it started there we had a good car the second day. I thought we had a shot at winning it and got in a scuffle and messed front end up, crashed. It ended up breaking. But in January, I lost a good friend of mine. It was a mechanic, Wally Sexton. He was a mechanic of mine for years. He battled a lot of health issues the last 10 years, and finally he succumbed to that. And, we kind of moved on, and come April 15th, tax day, we had a house fire. So it was an electrical fire in our garage. Basically everything in the garage was burned down. The whole house everything was smoke damaged, so they had to take it all down the studs, and we're still currently going through that. In fact, today when I got off work, I went to Lowe's and got doorknobs for the house, and then came down here for this. So still working on rebuilding the house. And then my grandfather passed away, which was expected. He'd been living in a nursing home the last year and a half and dealing with dementia. So we kind of knew that. But it was funny with him back in November, he was kind of sitting there in a chair, and Grandma walked in to see him, and he was all happy, and she asked him why. He goes, oh, well, we run third last night. So, and I'm not making fun of dementia patients, but in his mind, he was still racing, and he run third. He was all proud about that. So, you don't want to correct any of the dementia patients like that, and especially with him, you didn't want to correct him even when he was still 100% 30 years ago.
Sure.
Because he was right. It was always right. It was how it was going to be. And anybody who's known my grandfather knows this is how it is. It's black and white. And, it was hey, good on you, Ralph. So, and then he passed away, and we kind of expected that. And, we've had some up and downs on races this year, and then thankfully we can come race, especially here at IRP, or Lucas Oil Raceway, sorry.
It's okay. Everyone calls it that. Don't worry.
I'm still IRP at heart. That's I'm not super old, but I still have the old school saying, the names of it. But it's nice to come here and run. This track does have a lot of history. Yep. It's a different joint, for sure, and I like racing here. We've had some up and downs. We've run decent here. We've had a couple good runs going, and then the auto value race we had here a while back had a shock go bad. We still finished 7th, but we felt like we had a good top 5 car. We had a little misfortune there, but no. And there's been a few other hiccups here and there in 2020 where it's just kind of I kind of feel like the guy walking in the suit with the flames behind when he's on fire. You just keep on with your business. So, no, it's. I'm sure something else will happen.
You're not surprised when it does now, right?
Not surprised. Just move on to the next day, and life goes on.
So let me ask you this then, because you talk about some deaths that were impactful. The 2020 public health and all those types of things. Losing, who knows how many personal effects and things in a house fire. What helps you kind of have that attitude of keep on trucking, right? I mean, is it family? Is it racing? How do you there's got to be some mornings where you wake up and you're like, what else could go wrong? But what helps you kind of get through that?
I don't know. I don't know. There's some days you wake up, you're like, well, what's going to happen today? Yeah. And then, there's still a lot of goods. I mean, sure. I have with my daughter, my wife, and my mother-in-law lives with us.
Okay.
She was actually there with my daughter when our house fire happened. So she was able to get Emily out, my daughter, and got our dogs out. So, no one was hurt. It was like, all right, well, it was a large bad, but there were goods to it.
Yes.
So now we still have each other. And it's one where it's like, all right, it is what it is. I don't know. I have that not really a zero care attitude on things. I mean, I do have some care, but it's one where like you're not going to change the outcome of whatever happens.
Yep.
So just let it happen and deal with it.
I think especially in a year like this, having that when I say it could always be worse, I not that that's something to take lightly, but like we've seen so many negatives recently that like you said, you lost your garage, you had to tear the house down to the studs, but your family, you got out safely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it could always be worse, and so I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked at times, right?
And the hardest part on the house thing, when my wife and I showed up after the fire department was putting it out, our little Beagle, he was still a pup, it's my daughter's best friend,
Mm-hmm.
he was still in the house. Mm-hmm. And he was in there for 45 minutes, and I walked up to one of the main fire marshals, hey, are you guys going back in? Like, we need to contain the fire. And I basically told him, so I don't care if the rest of this thing burns to the ground, as long as that dog's okay.
Yeah. Like,
that's all I care about, because that's my daughter's best friend. So you can level this house as long as he's still around. That was kind of my mentality of, keep the clique together,
sure.
per se. And, that dang dog, he spent 26 hours at the vet with smoke inhalation.
Wow.
4 days later, we found him. He got out of our fenced yard somehow down there, because we were kind of just hanging out still. My race shop's still there at the house. And he was on a rabbit. I don't know how he caught the rabbit, but he had it grounded and was in the process of having a snack.
Wow.
So the Beagle got back to normal really quick, so we're like, you know what? Perfect. That's the best thing to happen, So that's all that really matters.
Sure.
I mean, racing's fun. When I was 18, I moved up from Florida saying I'm going to be a race car driver for a living, and that doesn't happen very often. There's only a handful that's still doing it, and you even take someone like Cody who still has a full-time job or a part-time job.
Yeah.
He still has to work a job to do it, to be able to afford living.
And that's why it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's why we want to do this, right? I mean, that's why we've got cameras on you right now, because we as a facility, we see you guys, everyone all the time. We've got a race going on every weekend from traditionally, this year's a little different, right? But traditionally from mid-March to the end of October, and we're around all these people, and we don't always know what you know about the racers around you, right? You're around them more. We're running around putting on an event. You guys are talking in the pits and hanging out after a race and all those types of things. And you all have incredible stories in your own right. Every single racer that comes to this property has some incredible story, that some might be funny, some might be sad, some might be whatever it is. And fans might come and watch yourself or Bobby or Cody or Tanner or any of these guys race. They don't know you have a 9-to-5, right? They don't know about your house that just burned down. They don't know about your family tradition of whatever it might be. And so that's the point of this, is because it's so important to kind of tell those stories and make sure that the fans know who they're actually watching, who they're actually rooting for, that they're not just a race car driver, that they have these, everything about professional athletes because of social media and whatever else.
Right.
And we want to help tell those good things, right? That you guys have 9-to-5s and you're doing this in your free time, and you're doing it because you love the sport, not because you're necessarily making a ton of money or because you're really good at it or whatever the case is. So. Right.
And, and thankfully, you get some of the racers who will work on the cars and they get paid by their car owners. Or you'll have, part-gen job here and there. And, my buddy Cap Henry works at an automotive shop, but he is up in the top 5 in the nation for wing sprint cars for wins.
Yeah.
So, he still has to work a job to do that. And thankfully for, myself and a couple other people like that, is we have jobs that say, all right, well, you can go racing. So you always have to give them a little bit of heads up. But I've worked in racing since I moved up here. I worked at CNR Racing for a long time for Chris Polson, and Chris was real big into the racing, and it was basically, you're going racing, perfect. As long as you're here at 7 o'clock in the morning, go to work. I don't care if you go racing. Which it was always. There's a lot of sleepless nights sometimes of coming home on a Sunday, going, I got to be at work, and now it's at 6 o'clock in the morning I get every day at work, so I can get out by 3 in the afternoon. But there's those nights where you come home and you get a couple hours sleep and you get up and go to work.
Yep.
And you go back to the house and you work on the car. You bust your butt all week to go racing again, and that's a lifestyle we chose. That's what we live. It could be a lot easier. I could buy the right lottery ticket and say I'm going to go live in Tahiti.
Yep.
Knowing me, I wouldn't. I'd be calling up every parts house trying to build another race car because I'm that dumb. But my wife would probably not be happy.
Yep. Yeah.
But as long as I bought her something nice, maybe I could keep her,
Sure.
in the loop of staying in the racing industry.
So you're just that dumb, right? There's racing it's in your blood, right? It's what you've always done. I'm going to guess you're going to continue to do it, right? So what's in the plans, right? Assuming everything's back to normal next year, 2021, race schedules kind of resume to the way we've traditionally known them, that type of thing. What are in the plans for Joe Liguori?
For this winter, we plan on building a car specifically to run non-wing stuff. The pavement sprint car we've been running was primarily built for wing racing. When we came here with the wing, it's your window of opportunity is real small with the Hurricane chassis.
Sure.
When it comes to non-wing stuff. It's a really good wing program that we have, and we want to build on that. So we've got some support to help build our non-wing program. So we can run races where we're not like running wing this day and then have to not sleep to get everything ready to go non-wing the next day, where you just come in, you unload one car, load the other one up, you go racing. That's the proper way to do it. So that's what we're slowly getting to.
Sure.
It's always a matter of funding to do the stuff to do it, but we're willing to do what we have to. Thankfully, we have a lot of supporters behind us. We don't really spend a whole lot out of our own pockets. We do spend some. I probably spend more than the wife likes. But we have a lot of support helping us do that. So we're able to build a car for, we'll run here a few times next year, and then Anderson Speedway, and we'll run the Little 500 next year. I have not run that race yet. It's a very expensive race to run, but it pays out decently,
yeah.
So you get some of a return on your investment per se. So we plan on running that, and I'll run some Silver Crown stuff as long as Roger still lets me put my seat in his car. And, that's about it. We're just going to kind of run whenever, wherever. Nothing particular. We'll just, once the schedules are out, we'll see what's feasible. This place being a half hour from the house, Anderson's an hour from the house. Some of your auto value races or must-see races all within, I consider a short drive a 7-8 hour ride. Because growing up in Tampa, and, you get on a plane to come up here and race on a Thursday night, and I'd have to go back Friday or whatever to race down there on a Saturday. Or when I graduated high school, I ended school on a Wednesday. I flew up here, raced on Thursday, flew back home Friday morning for my graduation. So I raced the speed drum and they did the graduation, and then Sunday I was packed up and I left Tampa for good. Wow. So it was like, all right, well, I'll be out down here for a couple of days, Mom and Dad, and then I'm moving up. Mm-hmm. See ya. I had good support with that. My grandparents had a place up there already at the time because Grandpa was still coming up he came up for quite a while. And I lived with them for a few years and got my own place. And I was really good buddies with Dave Steele. He had a house I lived at. And then finally when, Lindsay and I started, really getting, we were already dating, so we kind of got to the point where we had a dog, so we had a fur baby.
Yeah.
She was saying, "Hey, let's buy a house." I was like, I'm roped into this marriage already. So we bought a house up in Lebanon. We're about 5 minutes from Donna and Mel Kenyon. It's convenient. Those guys have great stories. Those two guys, they're polar opposites, Donna and Mel. It's always fun to listen to them talk, and you have this side of the story and then this side of the story, and it's fun there. And they're very knowledgeable people. That if I have trouble on something on a car, I call them up or I run over there. Hey, can you help me with this? So it's convenient, and like you said, 2020's it sucked, but it's been okay in return, and hopefully in 2021 everything returns back to normal, and we can get back to our regularly scheduled programming, is what I would say.
Well, I admire the kind of just letting it roll off, right? Like kind of rolling with the punches type thing. I admire it. 2020 has been hard enough for everybody, let alone some of the additional stuff you've gone through. So kudos to you, your family, right? Like just the strength of having to get through some of that stuff, while trying to maintain a race schedule and run a race car and raise a 4-year-old and all that fun stuff. So, kudos to you. Good luck to your family getting through the rest of the year, right? Rebuilding the house and all that fun stuff. And, we look forward to seeing you hopefully here at Lucas Oil Raceway in the future. Hopefully, with some of we've already announced our schedule for 2021 or most of it for the oval side. Some Thursday Night Thunder coming back, right? Hopefully trying to build off night before the 500 this year. So, we look forward to seeing you out here. We look forward to seeing everybody else out here. And again, good luck with the rest of 2020.
Yeah, hey, thanks for doing this with me. I'm glad I was the first at something. So I'm the first oval guy, so that'll be great. I'm sure you'll have a lot bigger names come through here, but I was the first one to do it.
That's all that matters.
That matters.
That's going in the record books. Anytime anybody looks up the Racers Tribune, Joe Liguori, first
Perfect.
oval racer. Thanks again.
Yep. All right, thanks.